So what is this?
This
Convention
is,
recap of
from
the
day 2 of the Big Wow Comic Fest.
Comic Fest.
It was awesome.
For some reason I'm not wearing my glasses, but I suppose it doesn't matter.
You could get them.
Anyway, so what did you think?
Okay, so what we did today was pretty much the same as yesterday. Toured around the dealer's room, which was suitably well stocked with comic books and toys and books, graphic novels, a couple of guys selling bootleg DVDs. Although I couldn't find the one guy today. I was totally set to buy a bunch of cheesy horror movies, but he wasn't there. So, his loss.
And I hope that we're talking loud enough so that it's overdriving that outside.
Well, you won't know until we watch it later. So, yeah, it was pretty awesome. We only did the one panel today, and that was it was on horror hosts from mostly the 80s, and well, two newer generation horror hosts who are active today. Although I am embarrassed to admit I didn't know either of them before this weekend. One was Miss Misery, and the other is Blood Raw, I think his name was. Blood Raw.
Something like that.
Apparently the one guy probably has more presence online, and then Miss Misery has a TV access show.
On cable.
Which sounds like it's worth checking out.
Except that we don't have Uverse, so
no,
we'll
but
check that out.
There might be online. I don't know.
But
yeah, that was a fun panel. It was a guy in a really awesome kind of a creature from the Black Lagoon / Silurian from Doctor Who monster costume.
Yeah, it was a Black Lagoon thing, wasn't it?
Kinda, a little different. A lot of cosplayers from Avengers today. There was a guy in a pretty good Shazam costume. Thing was, like, he physically didn't resemble Shazam.
Anyway.
He looked like Q from Star Trek. So that was sort of different.
But his costume did, but he didn't.
Yeah, so it was like if Q became Shazam for some reason.
And then gained about 330 pounds.
No, he wasn't that big.
Well, 40 pounds.
But, yeah, so what all did you do today?
Well, we went into the con and I got some DVDs and the Batman stuff, and I also tried to shoot some impressionistic video with that tiny little camera, slideshow camera of the con people around. Can use it as stock footage, I guess, throughout the other parts of the slideshow. Let's see. We got in the line with the BlackSad guy.
Oh yeah, the BlackSad guy actually had a booth set up today, and was selling the U.S. reprint of the BlackSad stories. I waited in line. The guy in front of me was getting like a $300 commission, so I watched this guy from scratch, starting with just pencils, do like this really beautiful full-page artwork of his characters.
So the artist is
the artist's name I can't pronounce it properly. Juanio
Guarandano.
Yeah, that.
And Juan Giaz Canales.
Yeah, he's the author of the stories, and then the other guy does the art. So it was just the artist here today, but used to work for Disney. I think we mentioned that yesterday, and you can tell because the
well, you can't see it.
You can't see it here, but the artwork is stunning. So that was worth waiting in line for. Got personally inscribed books, at least for the first 3 volumes. The 4th one has not
Very
come out
Disney-esque owl there.
Yes. And cats, so that's a plus. So yeah, I managed to get that.
And of course, it is a film noir cat.
I was lucky to get in the line like just after the guy had first sat down, because I waited about 10 minutes, and when I turned around, there was like about 20 people behind me.
Cat. BlackSad.
So there was that. Got some interesting DVDs from one of the horror host guys.
Probably say who these guys are. Are they?
Yeah, well, an associate of John Stanley is the guy who used to
in the 80s,
in the
late
early
70s,
80s,
late 79.
he took over the show Creature Features, which was a local thing on Channel 2, KTVU.
at like midnight.
Here in the Bay Area. And that was back in the old days when they didn't have, national syndication. So it was just whatever local, whatever range their broadcasting tower had. But we had creature features, and they would show movies like Night of the Living Dead and Creature from the Black Lagoon and, probably a bunch of even cheesier, stuff, as well as some classics. But, so John Stanley was the second host after the original guy retired. And then he has this associate who's, I guess, like his archivist, and that guy makes documentaries out of old footage that they've saved for years, including footage of the very first Bay Area Star Trek convention. So we got that on DVD. Apparently it's quite the treasure trove of
because even Ron Roddenberry didn't have it, and he asked for it.
Yeah, he had to contact these guys to get footage for the documentary that Roddenberry's own son was making.
Yeah, he doesn't even have it.
He was like, wow, you guys have the 70s footage? I'll take some of that.
For Trek Nation.
For Trek Nation, which I haven't seen yet.
I don't think I've seen it either.
Yeah, I've seen Trekkies. But there was that, and then apparently he also did some documentaries on Playland and the Sutro Baths, which if you're a local to the San Francisco area, if you've ever been up to like the Cliff House restaurant, up that little stretch of the coastline, there's this sort of area that looks like a bunch of concrete foundations. That used to be a bathhouse / amusement park that was up there in San Francisco, and it burned down, I think, in the 40s. It had opened in the turn of the century, and it was there for decades, but it finally burned down, and I've always been fascinated by it because I never got to see it. So this guy managed to get a whole bunch of photos and stuff and make these documentaries, so I picked those up.
Maybe I'll see that CD later, or DVD.
Yeah, bring them over. But, so that's pretty much what we did, and then we did like one last circuit through the dealer's room and looked at a bunch of cool stuff. There was one guy I really, really wanted. He had done a print of a character, Rocket Raccoon. It was a really cool little character, although they made him talk in the new video game that he's in, and it suddenly sounds like he's really pissed off about everything. I will cut you in the face. He didn't sound like that in the comics, from what I remember. He certainly didn't have that attitude, but...
Well,
but anyway, so he did this.
A show that,
yeah, he did this really cool picture of him, and I was like, oh, I really want that. And he's like, okay, well, I can only take cash, because everything I wanted to buy, they could only take cash, no plastic. So I ran out of cash in a hurry.
And apparently, this is not a promotion for regular show, but here is.
I just happen to be wearing the shirt. A lot of compliments on the regular show shirt, including some teenage girls who were like, "Oh!" Which, if you've seen the cartoon, you get. He hadn't, so he thought I was going insane.
Well, then again, he already is.
Well, I actually am insane.
Well, I take it there's a scene where he's riding along on something, like a roller coaster.
Oh, well, this particular image is from an episode where they are trying to get money to go to a rock concert, and so they start mowing lawns, and in order to stay awake, they become addicted to coffee and drink 40 pots of coffee.
Sounds like a episode of Erotically Yours. A little bit.
I wouldn't say it's particularly similar. For one thing, they don't rant. There's no polemics about partisan politics.
There's no ranting.
Regular show is more like slacker comedy with a surrealist edge.
Sort of like a Drunken Crow.
I haven't seen the Drinky Crow show.
That thing is weird. The Crow's slackerly and sarcastic.
Apparently, the theme song is by one of the They Might Be Giants duo for that show. I've heard the song. I haven't seen the cartoon.
It's very surreal and weird, and only shows at 3 in the morning on Cartoon Network. I very rarely am ever up at 3 in the morning on Cartoon Network.
I am sometimes, but I'm usually not watching TV. Just trying to sleep. Insomnia. Gotta love it.
Yeah, and the apparently Channel 2 showed the original Night of the Living Dead broadcast of it.
Oh yeah, that was kind of a big
uncut in probably 1980 or something.
About 1980 or thereabouts. And
they got away with it.
To show that movie uncut, if you watch Night of the Living Dead today, it's still pretty shockingly violent. And back in the 80s, back in the 60s when it first came out, that was jaw-droppingly violent, and
so,
people were shocked.
Yeah.
So to show that uncut on TV, and then apparently they also
They
showed...
didn't know that they just put it on.
Well, they
network
knew
was like,
they knew they hyped it up the wazoo, but what they also didn't tell the network was that they were going to show another movie called Twins of Evil, which has boobies in it.
Boobies.
And they weren't supposed to show the uncut version, but they did. And, oh, hello. Oh, thank you. Awesome. So yeah, I happen to have a bum knee, so I was griping about that, and I have just been given an ice pack. That is awesome.
Kitty.
Thank you. Yeah, I have to watch. I've had 5 arthroscopic surgeries in my lifetime, probably be more in my future. So I have to watch the walking around, and unfortunately you do a lot of that at one of these shows. But it's worth it, because we scored some pretty awesome swag.
If that's swag?
Swag. Stuff.
Usually swag refers to an actual person's demeanor more so than their stuff.
Oh, you're thinking of swagger.
That's what it is. It's a
So,
short version of swagger.
I've never heard anyone say he's got a cool swag, but I haven't heard it said he owns a lot of cool swag.
Huh.
Yeah.
But you see,
Apparently it means both.
they wanted me to have more swag on the set, so they got me
You've
shirts
already
that
got
were
too much swag. You have dangerous levels of swag.
There's levels.
It's too awesome.
I agree. Mostly stolen from cheesy movies.
Steal from the best.
But it was the guy after this horror host, this John Strassel guy, that
Stanley.
John Stanley. It was really after him that I paid much attention to who I was watching on Creature Features. So it was really the guy after him, whoever that was after him, and it was Elvira after him.
Well, they canceled Creature Features, so it was some other show that was kind of like it.
But there was an 87, it was up until 87, there was something like it.
Yeah, it was something like it. I don't think they called it Creature Features. It was like
they changed it to the Elvira show or something.
But
And I remember I was one of those people that, one of those kids when I was kids and teenagers, that watched the Friday the 13th TV broadcast back in 87. So, but it wasn't him, it was the guy after him. So. But, yeah, they've got a lot of these old tapes, and apparently what they did back in the day on broadcast television is they used these really big 2-inch tape reel things, and then they'd throw them away or record over them, like they did with Doctor Who in Britain.
Oh,
actually.
yeah, they
and they just throw it away, you know, they would figure nobody's going to want this anymore. It wasn't until the comics and convention revolutions of the late 60s, early 70s that people said, no, we want to keep this stuff.
Actually, it was the advent of the VCR that
VCR
allowed people to record stuff. Before the VCR, the regulations were, for most networks, that they could show something once, rebroadcast it once, and then they weren't allowed to show it anymore. So they had no incentive to hold on to old stuff because legally they couldn't show it again. So they're, instead of storing thousands of tapes that they couldn't do anything with, they thought, oh, well, we'll save some pennies and they'll, recycle them, which for the time was an economical idea. Unfortunately, that means they wiped a huge swath of film and TV history.
Yeah.
Which, in hindsight, wasn't that good of an idea. But in a way, I'm kind of grateful to Lucas for screwing it up as badly as he did, that he kind of spared me from, having to waste any more time and energy on Star Wars.
But anyway, there were Star Wars people at the convention, so it's relevant.
Yeah, the costumes were pretty awesome.
Costumes were, there were stormtroopers, there was a Darth Vader,
yep,
some other stuff. There was a Ghostbusters people. We don't know who they were, but we posed with them.
Yeah, I guess it's just a local chapter of Ghostbusters cosplayers. Should have asked them about any scuttlebutt on the third movie, because those guys would know.
Maybe they want to make the third.
Well, supposedly the third movie keeps almost happening, and then Bill Murray goes, no.
No, they shouldn't. They can't have the original cast.
Actually, at this point, they're going to be... I mean, Dan Aykroyd really, really wants to do it, but how old is he now? 65?
What's he going to do?
The only thing he could do is be the guy at the station in charge of sending them out, and it would have to be a new squad or something, which is okay, fine. So I don't know why the sticking point with Bill Murray, because he doesn't even want to be in it anyway, so you know what you do? Opening shot, Tombstone.
Bill Murray.
Peter Venkman, died. And if he wants to do a cameo, and this would be hilarious, have him pop up from behind the tombstone looking like an ectoplasmic ghost thing, and he kind of looks over to the left and just gets blasted in the face, and they capture him. And it's like the new generation guys going,
we
captured Bill Murray. There you go, and just pay him like $20 million or whatever he wants, and do that. But he keeps saying no. He'll do Garfield 2, but he won't do Ghostbusters 3.
Yeah. There were a lot of animators and comic book people that we really didn't know about. And had Tim gone with us, we would all cool Marvel characters and stuff everywhere, DC characters, and I know what this is, and he probably would have spent $300 there.
Yeah, well,
probably why
I spent about $100.
But yeah, about $100. But I didn't want to. Yeah, we tried it. We contacted.
Yeah, he just couldn't get the time, I guess.
I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, well, you can tell him about it later, but. Yeah, you missed out, Tim. It was pretty awesome.
Well, there was another convention that he wanted. It wasn't Big Wow, though. It was something else.
No, it wasn't Baycon.
No, it wasn't. It was another. It wasn't Famicon either. Wasn't
there's a lot of conventions in the Bay Area, apparently. A lot of toy shows, comic book shows. This one had a lot of impressive guests. We
knew them all.
I had to feel sort of awkward. It's a comic book convention. Most of the guests were like guys who are either Marvel or
Dark Horse,
DC, superhero comic things.
Image.
I don't really read comic books, especially not the superhero ones. It was never my genre or my thing. So like
there were horror ones though.
There were.
In fact, there was that point in which you said something about zombies and pirates, and there actually was somebody with zombies and pirates.
Guy selling zombie pirate art. Good zombie pirate art.
Yeah, and it's like ripping Pirates of the Caribbean. Which was funny.
Which kind of had zombies in it, the first one. But so I didn't really, you're sort of walking around and you run into one of the artists and they're like, hey, and you're like, hey, I've never read the Hulk, sorry.
There's the Hulk guy wasn't.
No, but so I felt a little weird. But then I kept turning around and running into just people that I never expected were going to be there.
One of the Iron Man writers was there.
Oh, was there?
Yeah, one of the other new Avengers guys was there.
Yeah, I'm completely out of the loop. The comic book world sort of, the
new world.
I collected some of the more odd ones, back in the '90s, but never, I guess in retrospect, I was kind of a hipster about it. I wasn't trying to be. It wasn't like, oh, these are all too mainstream. I just collected what I liked, and what I liked tended to not be anything that anybody had ever heard of.
Comic art.
One of my favorites, artist named Kathy Hill, did a series called Mad Raccoons.
That wasn't there?
Seek it out. Oh, no, that's... she stopped doing that, I think, in 93, 94.
She wasn't there, though.
She has a blog. You can see some panels from the comics. A really, really interesting art style. But stuff like that was my thing. And I didn't see a whole lot of that at this con.
It was called Angry Beavers.
There was an Angry Beavers comic, as I recall. I don't recall it being very good. But,
it was also a cartoon.
Well, it was a cartoon, and then they made a comic out of it. Kind of like they did with Rocko's Modern Life. There was a comic series of that, too.
Rocko's Modern Life.
But, yeah, I would turn around and there'd be like Johnny Legend, guy with huge grizzled ZZ Top beard, and he's just like, hey, you like movies? And he'd just start talking to us, and he was really cool. And
he apparently got into the adult film business.
Yeah, kind of by accident.
They told him to write a script one night, and he just wrote it and told him to write a score originally, and then it was a script.
Yeah, well, he's a rockabilly guy originally.
Musical
Actually, I think he still does.
And then they asked him to direct something called Teenage Cruisers.
Which ironically I had seen back in the early '90s. Gotten a hold of a bootleg cassette of this thing.
It was earlier than that.
It's like it reminds me of American Graffiti, but like way raunchier. And I remember bringing it over here and we watched it. But I had no idea that this guy had directed it, and so I see he's got copies of the movie. I'm like, oh, this movie, I remember this, and he's like, I directed it. I was like, really? Awesome.
Oh yeah, they just wanted him to.